A king is coming. Yeah. And here's the good news. I'm not him. A king is coming. I was going to put up some video of Elvis Presley's. Now, not the king of rock and roll. Then we could have gone to a little, I won't even try moon dancing, moon walking, whatever it is, something with a moon. There's a lot going on with moons, red moons, there's moon walking, there's bad moon rising. Somebody has done that one already. But a king is coming. Tonight is the second night of Purim. All right, close. Yeah, that's not great Hebrew, but I don't expect great Hebrew in Jacksonville, but that's the right word. Purim is the Feast of Esther. And tonight we're going to spend a few minutes around that feast, but the theme is a king is coming, and you're going to see it in just a few minutes. Let me get to my new iPad with the touch open. Oh, that is so cool. This is beautiful. I want to start tonight. Well, let me just kind of re-emphasize something that Pastor Jason said a few minutes ago. Next month for First Friday, there will be no seats available in this auditorium. So for you, First Fridayites, I really want to encourage you, get here early. We've changed the time to 7 p.m., which is going to give us a little bit more time. It's the first night of Passover, and it is going to be a Passover celebration. Right here in this auditorium, we have live animals coming. We have Seder plates. We've got matzah till you don't want to see it anymore. We've got all the trimmings. But it is going to be such a special time. But it's being broadcast aloud to Celebration Church. Now, this is a church of over 11,000 people. There's only 4,000 seats here. They'll be coming from the other campuses. So please, especially if you come a distance, I know it's going to be standing room only. So please make arrangements to get here so that you won't have to hear, I'm sorry, there's no more space. And then the next month, that would be April, May, we're going to have an evening. First Friday is going to be an evening of praise and worship. We're going to spend the entire evening in worship of the Lord. It's going to be a really special time. The following is June, and that is our Shavuot or Pentecost celebration. It's going to be wild, and I won't tell you about that. July, don't forget, we don't meet in July. That's the only month this year that will not have First Friday. Okay, was that loud and clear enough? 7 p.m. next month. Come early because the seats are going to be occupied. The curtains will be pulled back, and this place will be on fire. It's going to be very, very special. Okay, if you have your Bibles with me, turn with me to Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. Do we have that on our screen? I'm not sure what I asked for. If we don't, then I didn't ask for it. Zechariah 8, 1 through 3. Again, the word of the Lord Almighty came to me. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I am very jealous for Zion. Say jealous. I am very jealous for Zion. I am burning with jealousy for her. This is what the Lord says. I will return to Zion, and I will dwell in Jerusalem. I will return to Zion, which means he must have already been there one time or another. I will return to Zion, and I will dwell in Jerusalem. Now, why would we start talking about Purim, the Feast of Esther, in the book of Zechariah? Well, you'll see in just a couple of minutes why. But I want to take a look for just a couple of minutes at the major players of this Feast of Esther. I know you're very familiar with it, and a traditional thing to do, of course, during this feast is to read through the entire book. It's not very long, it's just a few chapters. It's full of excitement. For the younger people, there's lots of blood and gore. There's transformers that come in and out. Trust me, just read it. You'll find great adventure there. The first person I want to take a look at is King Xerxes. Now, Xerxes is a Greek name, and his Persian name is Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus. Try that. Yeah, pretty good. Ahasuerus. He is the king of Persia and Media. He's the king from 485 to 465 BC or BCE, whichever you prefer. He's the father of Darius the Mede. His kingdom is India all the way across to North Africa, including Egypt and down to Ethiopia. It is a huge, huge kingdom. He divided it up in order to rule over it. He divided it up into provinces. There was 127 provinces. Now, in the third year of his reign, and this is all in the book, you'll see when you read, in the third year of his reign, he has this bright idea. He's going to have a celebration, and he wants to show all of his friends. He invites all of the leaders of the provinces and the princes and the dukes and the do-do-dos. He invites them over to Shushan, the capital, and he wants to show off all of his stuff. And so he starts a parade. Now, without repeating any of the fire trucks or the policemen or the dancing polar bears or whatever it is, it takes 180 days for the parade to go by. Now that is a parade. Ahasuerus was fabulously wealthy. He had all the stuff that he needed, but he also had a wife whose name Vashti is famous because she's the only one who said no to him. And so after his parade, he throws a big barbecue, and he calls Sonnies and Bonos, and they all bring all the stuff. And for 7 days, all the people are feasting on the good of the land, all for free. And during it, he says, I'm going to show the people how beautiful my wife is. And so he called for my wife to come. Well, she's with the girls in the back, and they're talking whatever they're talking, makeup and stuff, and showing off their new purses from wherever they came from. And so one of the servants goes in, and he says, Queen Vashti, the king would like for you. She says, ain't gonna do that. She just puts on her attitude, and she says, ain't happening. Tell the king I'm too busy. You don't do that in ancient Persia. They have these funny-looking swords, that are curved, and they fit around your neck real easily. It's just... And so we like to say that she lost her head over the invitation, and apparently that's what happened. So she's no more, but this guy, Ahasuerus, is an amazing dude. He took over for Nebuchadnezzar. He's got all of the Jewish slaves now, all of the boys that were taken captive back in Israel, and they were dragged over to Iraq and now Iran. Daniel is a part of this, and Meshach and Abednego and Shadrach and the other Shachs. They're all a part of this thing. Remember, they were taken captive as little boys. They grew up outside of the land. The captivity was for 70 years. So And then the last thing that I wanted to point out is at the end of this feast, this king raises up a guy by the name of, are you ready? Haman. See, some of you have been around. In Purim festivals and feasts, we'll give it one more shot so we get it out of our system, because his name's going to come up a few more times, and I've only got so many minutes to do this. But the children will dress up as one of the people in the book of Esther, and we'll also give them noisemakers, groggers they're called, those metal things with the wheel inside. They're really obnoxious. Not the kids, but the noisemakers. And it's a part of it. So when you do this in your house, be prepared. There's all kinds of cotton and stuff you can stick in your ears. But every time his name comes up, you're supposed to boo and make noise. He's an all-time bad dude, and there's good reason for that. So I'm going to say his name once more. We'll practice like we're at a Purim feast at Bono's, and we can do this one more time. Are you ready? Haman. Perfect. All right, so give me a little grace, and we'll make that the last one for Haman tonight. That was a test. Some of you didn't pass. All right, the next personality I want to look at is Mordecai. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. For the rest of you that are going, what's the matter with these people? This is First Friday. That's what's the matter with them. It's different. He was exiled along with Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego by Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, and made slaves in the palace of Ahasuerus, Xerxes, king of Persia and Media. He's also one of the leaders of exiles who was brought back to Judah. So because of his faithfulness while he was in captivity, he got to be one of the folks that led the captives back into the land of Israel, along with Nehemiah and Ezra, and Mordecai was also made an aide to King Zerubbabel back in the land of Judah. Nice. That's something I didn't know. He, as you know, saved King Xerxes, or Ahasuerus, when he overheard a plot to assassinate the king. Imagine what it would take. But it was two guards in the palace who were talking about assassinating Ahasuerus. This gets tough. I need a towel or something. And Mordecai overheard it. He reported it to the king and saved the king's life. The king forgot all about it, wrote it down in the history of the nation, but he never did anything until a little bit later. One of the things that was a problem for Mordecai was he was very Jewish. Now that's not a problem, except that he would not, like Daniel and the three boys in the furnace, he refused to bow down to anyone except the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so now this man, whose name I won't mention, was raised up as the vice president, as the second in power. The king gave him a ring and gave him everything that he needed and said, "You're in charge. Go ahead and take care of the whole country." Well, there was a problem because there was a historical relationship between the people of Mordecai, the Jews, and the people of Haman, because it just turns out that he is an Amalekite. Now, his name we find in the fourth chapter. He's an Agagite. What's an Agagite? And there's a purpose for all of this history for just a minute. I want you to see this, though. The thing is, King Agag was the king of the Amalekites. When Israel was coming out of Egypt and going into the promised land, the Amalekites attacked, killed, They just hated this slave people coming into the land. And the sad thing to me is that their father, Amalek, is the grandson of none other than Esau. So it's family against family. So we've got now the Amalekites, the grandson of Esau, who's the brother of Jacob, and of course the son of Isaac. And because of their warring nature against Israel, God has cursed them, and he told King Saul, go and wipe them out. King Saul went and took his army, about 200,000. They went up against the Amalekites. God gave them power. They overpowered the Amalekites, but they didn't destroy them. They saw all the choice camels and the sheep and the goats, and they even took the king, Agag, they took him prisoner and didn't kill him. And God was very angry. And so when Saul came back from this battle, he met the prophet Samuel on the road. And Samuel had been up weeping all night. Why? Because God said to Samuel, I am taking the kingdom out of Saul's hands because he was unfaithful to me and to my covenant. Samuel loved Saul, and he pleaded with the Lord to have mercy on him, but the Lord said, no way. He was unfaithful in this, and I'm taking the kingdom away. So now you can see what the unfaithfulness of Saul has reaped on the people of Israel in later generations. Because there were some Amalekites left, one of them found his way to Shushan. He's now been raised up as the second in charge in Persia, and an enemy of Israel is now sitting on the throne, the number 2 guy in Persia, and he has power and authority to do whatever he wants. So what does he do? He decides he is going to destroy all of Israel. Any Jew, it doesn't matter whether it's Mordecai or anyone in all of the 127 provinces, he's going to wipe them out. I wondered for a long time, why would because it was only Mordecai who wouldn't bow down. And he says in his anger, I'm going to wipe them all off the face of the earth. Why would someone want to do that? Because of the unfaithfulness of Saul that was visited on further generations, and he almost had his way. So we celebrate tonight a great victory that God wrought. And the reason that the victory was wrought, I believe, is how we started, because a king is coming. You see, the king was promised to the Jewish people. We were told in one place that he would come out of Israel. There will come forth a rod out of Jesse, and a branch will grow from his roots. The Spirit of God will rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and truth. That's a good song. Do, 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 do. And he shall reign over all the earth. 3 people remember that song. Okay, great. We are re-recording those songs now from the 70s and 80s, and we're going to push those on you in a couple of weeks. We've redone them with all new arrangements, and they are really, really fun. The other person that I want to take a look at for just a minute is the heroine in this story, Queen Esther. She is also a slave who was born outside of the land. Her parents died, and her uncle Mordecai was the one who, adopted her, brought her in. Even though they were cousins, he adopted her as his daughter. Apparently, he was much older than her, and he brought her into his family. She was a Jewish girl. Do you remember her real name? Hadassah. Her Jewish name is Hadassah, but she hid her Jewish roots. She didn't, and Mordecai told her, don't tell anybody that you're a Jew. And so she kept her Jewish roots hidden. She was adopted and grafted into Mordecai's family, and she grew up there. Well, she changed her name. She's adopted and grafted in. She has a amazing beauty and grace about her, a gift from the Lord. And so when the king Ahasuerus is looking for a replacement for the girl that said, he goes throughout all of the land and auditions. They have American Idol way back then, and they're doing all these auditions. And she's selected. They come into the palace for a year of beauty treatments and oils and do their hair just right and and they get an audition with the king for one night. It's good to be the king, you know? Our friend Tommy Tinney did a movie on this story. You might remember his wife did the music, One Night with the King. Anyway, the king, she found favor with the king. He took her as the queen, and later on, she saves the nation. I want to take you back for just a couple minutes to Zechariah. There's an amazing thing that was going on in these days. Zechariah came back with his grandfather Edo from the captivity and his dad Berechiah, and they're back in the land now. Worship is going up from Jerusalem. The flocks and the herds are growing. It took 100 years for God to get the people back from captivity, back into the land. But in that time, of course, Nehemiah came back, and he's building the walls. And it was these same kings that gave him the authority to do it, and then all of the bricks and mortar and whatever was necessary to do it. And so Zechariah is back. The prophets are speaking in the streets of Jerusalem again. The walls are being built. There's revival happening in the land. The cities are being re-inhabited. The people are coming back from captivity. It's a joyful time. They're sitting under their own vines and fig trees, eating the fruit of the labor of their own hands and giving thanks to God. This is happening in Jerusalem. And yet, at the same time, over in Shushan, this whole story of Purim is unfolding. So while we have this great exodus out of captivity, and Israel is being built, and things are looking up, over here in Shushan, this guy by the name of you-know-who has hatched this plan, and he's going to destroy every Jew, which includes all of Israel as well. Every Jew in 127 provinces, there has been a day set that they're to be attacked and destroyed. But God has a plan. God has a plan. Now, I want to say to you at this point, there may be places in your life where you feel like you're surrounded. You feel like there have been plots set against you for your own destruction. And there is something coming against you, it seems like every 10 minutes. And how do you? God has a plan. God has a plan. And so what was his plan in the days of Esther? He's got a girl hidden in the palace. She's Jewish. She's adopted and grafted in. But she's hidden her Jewish identity. She's changed her name. It was Hadassah. She took the name Esther. She grows in beauty and majesty, finds favor with the king. She learns of the plot. She takes her life into her own hands, goes in before the king, makes intercession, and saves her nation. Our friend from Christians for Israel was talking to us about the power of prayer and this 100 days of prayer. There is power in prayer. There is power in prayer. And so Esther's intercession when she goes before the king saves a nation. Now let me fast forward with you for just a few minutes to the year 2015, about 2,500 years later. Israel is being regathered from all of the nations. Jerusalem is being rebuilt, the walls. I'll be there on Sunday. People are sitting under their own vine and fig tree, the flocks and the herds. You can see shepherds on the hills of Judea. They're taking care of their flocks and their herds. Businesses are prospering. They're coming back from all over the earth. It's taking now about 50 years. It may take another 50 to get them back if the Lord tarries. There's still 3 million left in the former Soviet Union. There's about 3 million left in New York City alone. It was only last year that the Jewish population of Israel overtook the Jewish population of New York City. Did you know that? We still have within our borders the largest Jewish population in the world. It's a blessing. And it's a responsibility. Because on a day, as the nations are being judged, I really believe the Lord spoke this to me. He said, I will judge the nations on 2 things. What did you do with the blood of my son? Meaning Messiah. He'll ask the nations, what did you do with the blood of my son? That will be one of the weights on the balance. And the other is, what did you do with the blood of my firstborn, the Jewish people? Because when God says it, it is forever. He said, I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. And it is still happening today. By the way, did you hear that Ayatollah Khomeini, who said, we will wipe them off the face of the earth? He just tweeted it this week. The Ayatollah tweets. Do you know his last tweet was the night that Benjamin Netanyahu stood in Congress in Washington, D.C., and gave his warning to this nation about a nuclear menace in the city of Shushan during the week of Purim. Hello. Is anybody listening? I don't mean you. I know you're listening. But are the nations listening? This year, 20,000 Jewish people have left France to make Aliyah, to go back to Israel because of the persecution. Is anybody listening? I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. And so here we are, 2,500 years past the time of Purim. And Israel is being restored, just like in the days of Zechariah and Nehemiah, Ezra, Daniel. The time of captivity is over. Our Jewish people are coming home. And at the same time, over in Shushan, over in Persia, there is a Haman who says, we will wipe them off the face of the earth. Why? Why still? Do you know why? Because a king is coming. It was true 2,500 years ago. Why is Israel being restored? Why are the Jewish people coming back? Because God, said, I will send him there. The salvation that we sing about and enjoy and clap about is to the Jew first. Romans 1:16, I am not ashamed of the gospel. It is the power of God for salvation to anyone who would believe. It is for the Jew first, and it's also for the nations. So back 2,500 years ago, Israel was preserved. Why? Because a king was coming out of Judah, out of Bethlehem. Bethlehem means house of bread. He is the bread that comes down from heaven. And now Israel's being restored again Jerusalem back in Jewish hands. It's being restored. The prophets are speaking again in the streets. Why? Because a king is coming. Remember there in Acts chapter 1, as the disciples stood there with Messiah on the Mount of Olives. I'll be standing on that spot in just a couple of days. Ooh. There is something. And the day that we're living in, I have friends, Armenian friends, who built a home that faces the Mount of Olives, and they know. They said, we look out our window every day. We're going to see it happen from our living room. I said, that's pretty cool. And so we have a modern day Haman that says we're going to wipe them off the face of the earth. But God has a plan. God has a plan. What's his plan? He's got a young girl hidden in the palace. Paul, what are you talking about? He's got a young girl hidden. She was born Jewish. She was adopted and grafted in. She took a Gentile name. She changed her Hebrew name. She was brought into a Jewish home. She was raised up in beauty and majesty, and she's married to the king. Do you know what her name is? The church. The church. She was born Jewish. She was adopted and grafted in. She changed her name. She has done a really good job at hiding her Jewish roots for many, many years. But now, I believe the Spirit of God is saying to her, I need you to pray. I need you to come and make intercession. Do you know that you've been brought to the kingdom for just such a time as this? They're waking up in Germany. They're waking up in France. They're waking up in the former Soviet Union. They're waking up in Latin America. They're even waking up in Jacksonville, Florida. You see that just a couple more minutes. In the West, we have this what about me mentality. Do you hear it in a lot of our preaching and a lot of our teaching? It has to come down to, okay, well, that's great, but how does this benefit me? How is it going to bless my life? The scriptures say, freely you have received, freely give. I really believe that when we get our eyes off of ourselves and we're not so interested in, what about me? And we begin to say, what about him? Some people say they enjoy the music that I create because of the pronouns. That really blessed me. This lady works in our office. She's the one who brought it up to me. She said to me one day, she said, Paul, your music is different. And it's about the pronouns. Because worship music is supposed to be about him. So much of our praise and worship music today it says I and me. So much. But if we have the attitude of Mordecai, if we have the attitude of Esther, she said, if I perish, I perish. You see, when she went before a king, her husband, it was forbidden by law to go before the king unless you were invited. And you know the penalty for doing it? That same curvy sword that fit Vashti's neck, it'll fit yours too. But Mordecai had such a great motivation speech. He said, Hadassah, God has made you and he's made you unique. And he's placed you in an incredible position at a remarkable time of history. And then I'm, of course, paraphrasing. And he said, you know, if you won't go and intercede before the king for your people, God will raise up deliverance for us from somewhere else. But who knows? Maybe God brought you to the kingdom for just this moment in time. Don't miss your opportunity. Amen. Maybe he breathed on that lump of clay that we call you by your own name. And he's fashioned you, and he's brought you through trials and difficulties, and you passed through the water, but you didn't drown. You went through the fire, but you weren't burned, and you're standing, and you know it's by his grace. Well, maybe he did that, and he fashioned you, and he brought you to the kingdom for just such a moment as this. Maybe. And it was that motivational speech. She said, okay, pray for me. And I'm going to take the opportunity. If I die, I die. But I will go and I'll make intercession. It's happening in Germany. These days we're starting a campaign to support and help the Iraqi Christians that are under unbelievable pressure. We have found friends that have a way of getting food into them, so we've started a food campaign to send them food and clothing. They're freezing to death. They're starving to death. Who knows? Maybe God gave us 22 million friends on Facebook for just such a time as this. Well, Paul, I don't have a Facebook that big. I don't have this. I don't sing. Do you realize that all of the things that were done in this story happened with words? It wasn't because they were great people. It wasn't because they were super talented. It wasn't because they won the lottery. They just trusted God, and they spoke the truth in love, and God used that seed and saved a nation. What if it was your prayers that turned the heart of a king? Who knows? Maybe we were brought to the kingdom for just such a time as this. I want to encourage you tonight. These are remarkable days. I believe that Bibi Netanyahu came to us as a Mordecai. I believe that. I saw someone on a news channel who said about that, she watched it. She's a news anchor. She said, I watched that man and I had leadership envy. I said, yeah, you should. Where are Mordecai's today? Where are the Esthers? Where are those? Where are the Zechariahs? Where are the Elijahs? Where's our prophets? Where's our priests? Where's our kings who take a stand, who draw a line in the sand and actually mean it? I remember the words of Joshua, faced with even a hostile people amongst him. And he said, you got to choose. You got to choose today who you're going to serve. But me, I've already made up my mind. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. I believe God is raising up an army today. He's raising up an army of Mordecais and Zechariahs and Esthers. Those who are not ashamed and not afraid. I'm not ashamed of the good news of Messiah. It is the power of God for salvation to anyone who would believe. But it is for the Jew first, also for the nations. What about you tonight? You've been fashioned, you've been honed, you've been sanded, some of you have been chiseled, some of you feel like you've been shaken right to the core. But we've been brought to the kingdom for just such a time as this. So rak chazak ve'ematz, be strong and bold, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Take the opportunities that you heard tonight, and our friend will be in the back later on as we dismiss in just a couple of minutes. There's Hamantashen back there. Ooh. There's a wonderful nosh. We have an oneg after every first Friday. There's some really good food. Stick around. Talk with someone. Take opportunities to learn of this ministry and pray. Take opportunity to meet some folks. You'll make some lifelong friendships here at First Friday when you find people of like heart and like mind. The worship team is coming back, and we're going to finish tonight with a song. But as we do, see if there isn't something that the Lord is saying to your heart tonight. I've molded you, I've fashioned you, I've brought you to the kingdom for just such a time as this. And then our response is, Hineni, Lord, here am I. Use my mouth, use my hands, use my life. Maybe even save a nation. Hallelujah.